Hello, fellow Sublime Text fanatics. ODAT Nerd here for Devember Day 11. Woo! What did we do today? Well, we did not do as much planning before the stream as one might have hoped due to various life type issues getting in the way. And then when the stream actually came, we ended up once again going a little longer today, and we did not do what we were planning. Now, what we were planning to do was sitting down and doing a concentrated design effort on how exactly our build system is going to work. Now, as a sneak preview for tomorrow, because that's what we're going to be doing tomorrow, this basically involves sitting down and writing a stub Sublime build file and deciding how everything is going to work, what options would appear in there, how they would interact. That's going to tell us what our command needs to do, how it should do it. It's going to hopefully, fingers crossed, that's the sort of mind exercise that allows you to realize things that you forgot that you needed to have happen in the first place. So that's what's going to happen tomorrow. That's what we were going to do today. We did not do that today. Instead, what I did do was first fix various issues in the code from the very quick implementation we did last night to integrate the network code into our plugin to get it working, because a lot of the stuff that was there only worked because I didn't quit Sublime and restart it after I modified the plugin. So I fixed all of that. And then I completely went off on a non-Devember related thing to add a command to my copy of Sublime to open the console in its own window. And by open a console in its own window, what I really mean is create a new window with a scratch buffer in it named console so that you can open that, scroll or size the console up as big as possible and have it in another window, because there's no way to move the console outside of a window otherwise. That has nothing to do with Devember, but it has everything to do with sometimes you are working with Sublime and you really want a command, you just write one. It's pretty simple. And where did we go from there? Well, from there, we actually worked on, instead of what we were planning on working on, integrating our network code into the client, our client network code, I should say, into our plugin proper, if you will, even though our plugin doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot of anything. Now, generally speaking, that means what I did was, in no particular order, we fixed a bug wherein we were not being told, or if we were being told, but we were not correctly detecting when a connection was closed because the remote end of the operation closed it. We added a notification system, just a quick one, just to get it working and as a proof of concept, so that instead of, if you watched the stream yesterday, instead of using a hacky Sublime set timeout with a half-second delay after sending a message to check for the response, we now can register with a connection and say, hey, tell me when something happens. And the connection will tell you when it connects, when it disconnects, and when it receives a message. It'll also tell you if it tried to connect and failed. Now, those notifications are not useful right now because all it does is just say something happened on this connection, and it's up to you to figure out what it is, which for our purposes means trying to get a message out of the receive queue to see if it worked or not. So that is what we did there. We fixed the network code. And because ultimately what we want is, while we're doing this build, yes, build results are going to appear in the build output panel as they normally would. There is other information about the build that we're going to need to log somewhere. We want to log when connections are made to a remote server. We want to log when they're lost from the remote server, and various other status operations. For example, as a sneak peek, our build system is going to gather files and transmit them to the remote system to execute the build. At least in some cases. We'll see tomorrow if we can come up with a way to not have to do that if the files are already on the remote system, but that's not my particular use case. It's something that's probably possible, but nevertheless. So we're going to want to get information about that stuff happening. And to that end, we extended the log method that already existed. Oh, itchy nose, and bumping the microphone. This is terrible, but it is awfully late. We extended our log functionality so that it takes an extra argument called panel, which is defaulting to false, but you could set it to true. And in that case, along with doing what it would already do, which is log something to the console, um, maybe log it as an error, maybe display it as a dialog. It also puts it into a special build remote build panel that we add to the window. And the first time you do that command, the panel is added to the window. And then any command that logs with panel is true, output gets appended to that window. So we can now easily see our connection and disconnection and received type messages without having to look in the console. They'll still be there along with other debug code like created connection, destroyed connection, created network thread, destroyed network thread, all that business. That's still there. It just doesn't appear in that panel. And for the time being, the panel appears whenever something appears in it so that every time we do something, we can see it happening. That's not how it's going to work in the general case. And just for sanity's sake, at least while debugging, we also very quickly skived off into creating a command in the output panel for that build outputs that allows you to clear its content so that between runs you can get things going. Now, there is still a little bit of work to do on notifications because, as I said, it just says something happened, but it doesn't tell you what the something was or why you care. That leaves that up to you. And it also raises the notification in the network thread, which is not what we want. We want to have that deferred and popping in on the Sublime main thread or the async thread or something. But there was a little bit of an issue with that when a connection goes away, the callback gets clobbered before something can actually happen there. So that's probably pretty easily fixed, but I didn't want to get into it because it was already quite late, and I wanted to get the devlog out. And then, like a boob, after I finished recording, I accidentally, on purpose, looked at Stack Overflow and answered a guy's question on there as well. And now it is 10:26, and I'm just finishing recording the devlog now. So another long night, but I did it to myself. Sometimes when you get rolling on code, you don't want to let it go. That is the sign of a interesting project. And hopefully, if you're watching the live streams of things, you find that sort of thing interesting. The process, the debugging, insights into, especially now, package development in Sublime because the other code hasn't really been Sublime related, but now it's going to be more heavily focused on that. And if you don't watch the live streams, you may want to watch the one for tomorrow because there's going to show us the whole design of how this thing is going to work. And follow on devlogs aren't going to cover that because it's going to be a pretty big thing, I think. We'll find out. And if you want to, we're not going to otherwise cover it. So if you want to know the design, that's what we have to do. But for now, I really need to get this off the camera, processing, and headed on up the internet. So this is ODAT Nerd saying, did you know every time I finish a live stream, I literally salute even though nobody can see me? So I might as well do it now as well with both fingers. Good day, everyone. Have a sublime one. And stay sublime. That's very important. Very important that you stay sublime.